Hello people of YouTube, I am back with another video. Now for this video I wanted to talk about the very infamous subject of fans and fanboys and all the fan works. Now it's quite an interesting subject with the internet because, well, for one, due to the anonymous nature of the internet, people seem to really not care how they act. And also, I've noticed that people tend to go a lot crazier when in groups. So, anyway, fans, fanboys, and fanfiction, part 1. Now, here's the thing. Now, I've noticed a lot of people like to just dismiss fans of something as fanboys for enjoying something, but I don't know, I haven't seen too much that really distinguishes a fan from a full-on fanboy. And, I've been thinking about this for a while, what could distinguish the two. Now, here's kind of some of the theories I got. One, a fan is just someone who consistently enjoys a certain thing. Like, for example, a fan of Star Wars would consistently enjoy the movies, while a fanboy would go full-on obsessed with them over certain details and all that, and, would be more likely to hate the prequels. Anyway. But yeah, fans I don't think are the ones that go full-on overboard with it. And, I think one of the main things with a fanboy is they tend to take things way more personal. And also, they tend to be far less, like, a fan more often than not can, enjoy things outside of their comfort zone, while a fanboy just most likely cannot enjoy something outside of their comfort zone. But there's many types of fanboys, and there are certain types. Now, one type of fanboy that I'd like to talk about, I call him the fan zombie. Now, what a fan zombie is pretty much, that person who just loves every single thing that said person or content creator or, game series or movie pretty much loves everything that they make. Like, say, a fanboy, pretty much a fan zombie for, say, Angry Video Game Nerd would love every single video that guy makes and would be much more, like, pretty much just mindlessly watches them. Now, this one doesn't have to go with this next one, but more often than not does come with it. These are the defender fanboys. These are the ones that, will get very up in arms when someone criticizes, something that they love. Like, the big problem is they more often than not take it really personal. For example, for a while I caused this intentional ruckus on the Honest trailer for Final Fantasy VII where some guy was saying it's one of the greatest games ever made, and I just decided to see if this was one of those people, and sure enough they were. Like I just said, no, the game was horribly dated, and I gotta be honest, I went a bit overboard with it, especially considering I never actually played the game. But yeah, I'm probably not gonna live that down. But anyway, the guy just him and a bunch of other people just kept, like, going and screaming at me, just saying how wrong I was for not liking something, and, they took it rather it seemed like they were taking it really personal, and, that's a bit of a problem. Now, here's another type of fan. I don't have a name for this one, but this is the type of fan that thinks that because they, enjoy a certain thing, that certain thing is, like, pretty much has to do what they want. The entitled fanboy. Like, for example, let's say there's a YouTube content creator and, like, they decide to go out of their comfort zone. Like, say a guy who got popular making top 10s decides he wants to try his hand at making something like YouTube poop. Now, these type of fanboys will react really, really harshly to that and constantly just try to pretty much are the types of people that just feel really entitled, like, because they're watching your stuff, they can't do anything. They have to accommodate for the fans and for the fans alone. And on one hand, there's some sense of that, but more often than not, like, they take it to the extreme. Like, on one hand, like, for people buying products, like, in some ways it can make sense, like, them saying, I bought money for so-and-so and I was expecting this, but I got something I didn't want. Now, on one hand, that does make sense, but on the other hand, it does kind of, it's kind of a limiting process, and it more or less gives certain things that probably for example, like a creator might want to try something new, and these type of fanboys just don't want to go out of any sort of a comfort zone, and yeah, they can act pretty ridiculous. And another type of fanboy is the one that, this is an interesting one with how it ties to, fan projects and fan fiction. These are the type of ones that think that they can do better than, the people making it, which never turns out well. I don't think I've seen really any fan projects for things that really end up being better. I mean, I've seen ones that are, good in their own right, but like, I think the most people tend to be able to do is make parodies of them, and that's, like, more often than not, they can never make a full-fledged great thing. For example, I think the Brony community is really bad for this with their fan projects, where they go really nuts over, stuff they made. And the interesting thing about that is, like, I'm more often than not, I'm usually not too I'm not mad that the fan projects exist. Like, I'm usually happy for that, to see, people getting together over, something they enjoy and even creating their own type of thing based on it. But more often than not, they tend to give, like, too much praise, and, like, on occasion there's, some gems, but more often than not you don't really see it, and even then, due to most audience taste, for whatever reason, like, they don't go with the most. Well, exceptionalism is the exception, would probably be the best thing to say. And, anyway, losing my train of thought. Yeah, and this is, again, an unscripted. But, yeah, we have I went through the zombie fanboys, and, I could funny thing was, I thought I had a lot to say, but, the funny thing about a zombie fanboy is, like, they're so easy, like, there's not much you can say. They kind of speak for themselves. But what really interests me with the, fanboys, like, they tend to react very hostile to, anything other than them. Like, for example, say you got a person who's, like, very much a fanboy of, say, something like Nintendo, and then they react harshly towards Sony. I sometimes end up doing that, just not thinking, like, yeah, I can be a bit of a fanboy myself at times. But the thing I've noticed, like, is they never really seem to accept that, something that, for example, let's say somebody who doesn't like the Xbox, for example, like, they're probably gonna not accept that they might have done something well just because, they don't like the thing themselves. And an interesting thing with most people is, like, they think they know better, like, especially on the internet, like, they know better than everyone else because they're them, and it's really stupid. But anyway, losing my train of thought again. But anyway, fans, what would you think? Now, when it comes to fans, these are probably, I think, the people who get it the worst, because, like, fanboys are just so more vocal and, easy to point out. And, it makes it worse for, the regular people, the people who just kind of enjoy the content. And, yeah. Yeah, that's the interesting thing with fans. And one thing that I've noticed is, like, most people try to make themselves look really professional. Like, a lot of fans try to make themselves sound professional and try to, like, have you ever noticed, like, most people think they can do a better job than, people who actually, do things? For example, trying to think. For example, people who, like, get really up in arms about the Star Wars prequels, like, especially people who go to Red Letter Media, like, they act like they can make a much better movie than, Lucas and all that, which, I don't really like the Star Wars prequels, but, I don't think they're full-on horrible. Well, except for Episode 2, that one was awful. But, the interesting thing with fans, oh yeah, I'm getting back to this one. With fan fiction and fan projects, I've noticed, like, this usually comes from people who think they know, like, pretty much more often than not, these people think, like, because they've seen something for a good long time, like watched a certain show for hours and hours, they, like, know all the inner workings and all that, and then they end up forgetting that, it's all created by, a certain person, like, one person or a group of people that might have certain ideas. Like, This is kind of the interesting for out of character stuff, like when someone says it's not true to, what the creator intended and all that. Another interesting thing with fanboys and all fans and fanboys is like, most of them can, for some reason, can never seem to, decide between, what the, I'm trying to remember. I've noticed when people say like something should go back to its roots, more often than not, what they mean by going back to their roots is pretty much trying to recreate pretty much trying to recreate their childhood, which is never gonna happen. And that's, I think, usually the worst part for, say, a nostalgic fanboy is usually, oh yeah, I should probably talk about nostalgic fanboys. These are usually the people who, grew up around a certain time and, they love something from their era, and more often than not, they tend to hate all the things like, pretty much in the middle of their life. Like a good example is Movie Bob, who like hates pretty much most stuff from the 90s. And I think even once said like, he was a teenager around that time, and, nowadays he's like an adult with a job, if you can consider what he does a job. But anyway, like, yeah, the nostalgic fanboys, I think, are usually the worst ones for doing things like that. Like, these are the ones who want to live kind of in their past forever, and that obviously has a big downside. Short and sweet for nostalgic fanboys. Usually having nostalgia for me is not bad. I mean, everyone probably does. I mean, just because you love something that you liked as a kid doesn't, like, loving that. For people who go against the nostalgic fanboys, like, loving something that they loved as a kid, I mean, that's fine because, I usually have no problem with that as long as they don't try to deny, another generation of, their own nostalgia and something to love. Anyway, now, the file size is getting a little big, so I'm gonna go. You all have a great day, and I'll let the rest of this the boss fight, play out for you. And I have a part 2, I'm working on a part 2 as well, so I'll see you then. You all have a great day, and let me know your thoughts.